Welcome to NFL World, where NFL starts and ends. I'm your host, Jacob. And in Week 16, on the NFC side, it's pretty cut and dry who's going to be in the playoffs. There's two teams still in the hunt, but we have a pretty good idea. Let's first begin, though, with the stuff that happened on the AFC side on Saturday. We're going to start with the Houston Texans versus the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs winning the game 27-19. In a game in the first half, the Chiefs played really good football. They didn't turn the ball over. They didn't get Mahomes sacked. Mahomes looked good on the ankle. There definitely seemed to be like a different class between them and the Houston Texans. But I also want to make this abundantly clear. In the third quarter, Texans are driving to try to score and tie the game 20-all. And Tank Dell suffers a devastating injury. He ends up catching the touchdown, but suffers a devastating injury that just completely took the air from their sidelines, from the whole stadium. It was a really nasty injury, to the point that they brought out the cart, which they had to do early in the game for Jimmy Ward. Then they left the cart. They brought another cart that it almost looked like, my family was texting me and they were saying, like, it almost looks like a funeral cart. It looks like a cart, like we don't want people to see what it is. That's what it looked like. Now, we do know with the injury Tank Dell did suffer. He suffered a dislocated kneecap. He was released from the hospital. He's going to go back to Houston, get it re-examined, make sure everything is okay. But he had to actually go to a level 1 trauma center. Let me make sure you guys can hear me. Tank Dell had to go to a level 1 trauma center in Kansas City, which was about 12 miles away from the stadium. And the thing is, you could just see the emotion from the Houston Texans, because this is a guy who broke his leg last year. He broke his fibula. And now he suffers a dislocated kneecap. He's a good player. He was the one reason they were even in the game, was because they couldn't stop Tank Dell. I mean, it wasn't about Nico Collins. It was about they couldn't stop Tank Dell at all. He was open. He was finding ways of open, making incredible catch after incredible catch. It was devastating. CJ Stroud's emotion. And people were trying to make fun of that emotion. Like, that's real. Man, that gets frustrating. They have such a close bond, a receiver and quarterback, but especially Stroud and Tank Dell. They become really good friends, and you see these two devastating injuries back-to-back years. You lose it. It becomes so emotional. Very much after that, the Texans couldn't do anything. So that's kind of the best way I can describe it. But yeah, a good game by the Chiefs. Just, you don't want to see injuries like that. So hopefully Tank Dell is okay. Our prayers are with him and his family and with his teammates. And we hope it's a speedy recovery for Tank Dell. Moving on to the Steelers and the Ravens. Ravens winning this game 34-17. And you think, wow, the Ravens actually won against the Steelers. Like, it's a shocker. I do want to say George Pickens was not in this game, and second week in a row, the Steelers struggled with George Pickens not being in the game. TJ Watt was in this game. He was playing on this low ankle sprain. It just didn't look the same. The offense didn't look explosive for the Steelers. They kept it close, and then that pick 6 from Marlon Humphrey kind of just opened the floodgates at that point, and they couldn't respond. The fumble by Najee Harris on the interception, I believe from I think it was Minka Fitzpatrick who made the interception. That just can't happen. Too many mistakes happen. You can't turn the ball over, especially when you're a team like the Steelers. You don't have the ability to turn the ball over. You have to win the game on possessions, field position, and scoring when you have those opportunities, not when you turn the ball over. That cannot happen. You don't have enough ability at this point. Moving on. Let me give props to the Ravens here. The Ravens played well. Derrick Henry ran hard. He had over 130 yards on the ground. He moved the ball well. He was playing, and we've talked about this about Derrick Henry before. He plays a game where he makes the other football players look like children. They just can't slow him down. He's so hard to tackle. He plays the game with so much velocity. And you just see it every time he runs. It looks like he gets stronger. Like you say this all the time. It looks like they get stronger throughout the game. Well, Derrick Henry actually does get stronger during the game. It's like, what is going on? At first you could tackle him. Now you can't. He's just completely sliding. You can't bring him down. And then if you try to even get close to him, here comes that big paw that he just shoves in your face and throws you like 3 feet. It's what he can do. He's an unreal player, and props to him. That was something that didn't happen the last time these two teams met. So, very impressive showing from the Ravens offense and defense. Next up, Lions at Bears. Lions winning the game 34-17. Talk about like a team that lost their way in the Bears. Like they scored 17 points here, but it was just, they're not as effective. They fell apart after the Eberflus firing. I think that was the only thing holding it together. As bad as it was being held together. Yeah, it's kind of like this. Have you ever seen those like videos of something that's like held together, but it's held together with like duct tape and like Gorilla Glue and various things, and it looks messy? That's kind of what the Bears are. It's held together and it's very messy, and it doesn't look good. That's what the Bears are. It doesn't look good. It's messy. It doesn't operate well. And the Lions were toying with them. They toyed with him. No David Montgomery in this game. He actually had a couple different opinions, and he's gonna try and rehab it. If it doesn't work, then he'll just go get the surgery. But he wants to try. Jameer Gibbs had a big day. Sam Laporta had a touchdown. It was just a really nice performance from the Lions, and a team that had to get back on track. Yes, they lost last week to the Bills, but you still have the number 1 seed. That was the first game you lost in 2 months. That's very impressive. You can't afford to lose that number 1 seed. You need to have people go to your house and beat you there with that environment. And the Lions have a great chance of doing that, especially with the Eagles loss, which we will get to. Let's jump to the Rams and the Jets. The Rams winning this game 19-6. It was not a pretty game, but the Rams needed this win. They needed to try to extend that lead in their division, and they got it. Some of these games, they're not going to look pretty all the time. Just need to look okay. And that was what this game was. And the Jets, it kind of felt like in the second half, because they scored 9 points in the first half, and then they rolled over and died. That's kind of what they did. And it was not a good performance. Now, moving on to the Eagles-Commanders game. 11 plays into this game, Jalen Hurts gets hurt, suffers a concussion, taken out of the game. Kenny Pickett goes in. Kenny Pickett proceeds to throw a touchdown, threw an interception. He's getting beaten around a lot to the point at the end of the game he had to get x-rays. The Commanders turned the ball over 5 times. And when you hear that, you say, okay, they lost. Because the Eagles only turned it over once. Saquon had over 100 yards in the first half. Only had about 30 yards left in the game. Commanders really shut him down and then Jaden Daniels had 5 touchdowns, including the game winner late, to win the game 36-33. And the concern I have at the Eagles is this. We've said this before, are they too Saquon-centric? Does Saquon get stopped? And I'm not talking like, okay, he stopped for a quarter, he stopped for a half. If he's stopped, does that mean they don't move the ball as well? Not saying they can't move the ball. They still have Devontae Smith. They still have A.J. Brown. But not having Saquon, does that make it so much harder for them? And I think it does. I really do think it does. Especially with Jalen Hurts being out. That robs you of the read option stuff. The RPO stuff. You can't do it as often. And teams are very well aware of that. That's kind of the downside of not having a mobile quarterback behind you. Like that's the downside. Late in the game, excuse me, the Eagles had the ball on a 3rd down and short. Devontae Smith gets wide open, drops it. Can't happen. It was a good throw too. Excuse me. Let me take a thing of water. Leads to a Jake Elliott 50-yard field goal make, which was his first 50-yard field goal make this year, as he has struggled at times. It's just, I don't know how to describe what the Commanders did. All I can say is it was a good job, and like they kept that together. That's the best way I can describe it. They kept it together. They moved the ball well. They did a lot of nice things. You got to give props to Dan Quinn about that. Of keeping these guys in believing. Next up, Patriots at Bills. Bills winning the game 24-21. Patriots made this a game. They really did. Bills had quite a few issues, dropped passes, especially, but they did a good job, I thought the Bills did. They ran the ball well. James Cook hit a touchdown. He also had a touchdown catch. And at the end of the day, the Patriots just couldn't stop the Bills on the ground. You can't, like we said about the Steelers, if you're the Patriots. No, the Patriots aren't going anywhere. We're well aware of that. But you can't turn the ball over. You're just not good enough as a team to stop the opposing team from scoring. You just can't. They're not good enough. So that's kind of what it is. And again, Patriots played well. It's just you're not good enough as a team, at least at this point, to have a turnover and then not let the other team score. Or only kick 3. You're just not good enough yet. And the Bills, they're still trying to vie for this first seed in the division. You'd much rather have Kansas City play in Buffalo than you have to go to Kansas City. That's what you much rather do. You want them in that environment, not in Kansas City. Now, it would be difficult. Chiefs would have to lose the last 2 games to the Steelers, who may not have George Pickens, and to the Broncos, who haven't played that great as of late. It would be tough, but it could still be done. You have the tiebreaker. You really need to get the same record. Next up, San Francisco at Miami. Miami winning the game 29-17. When San Francisco played, and I'll say the same thing with Dallas, they knew they were eliminated. How was the team going to respond? What I just said about the Jets, you can say a very similar thing about San Francisco. Not offensively, but sometimes they look lost. And that's kind of what happened here. It wasn't a terrific performance. The Dolphins still have a chance to get in. The Bengals still have a chance to get into the playoffs. So let's be fair. It was a good enough performance from the Dolphins to win, and it props to Mike McDaniel getting a win over his mentor. Now, in the Sunday night game, who thought this was going to be a good game? So, my game for the week would have been Eagles Commanders because of the score. But who thought the Cowboys and Bucks game was going to be great? Like this. This was insane. Not the scoring, the hitting, the impassion that these two teams played with. Let's first start with the Bucks. The Bucks had a 1-game lead over the Atlanta Falcons. So they could not afford to lose this game. So they were playing inspired football. The Cowboys were out of the division. They're out of the conference. They were completely eliminated. They haven't played well all year. But they had won 3 of their last 4. And probably should have won 4 of their last 4. If they don't have that mistake. And then on top of all that, like they knew 4 hours ahead that they were not in it. This was a statement of, we want our head coach, we want our defensive coordinator here next year. We don't want to go through another head coach. We don't want to go through another defensive coordinator. These are guys we want. And that was how they played. Both teams did. Both teams showed that. I'm going to start, the run game for the Cowboys was non-existent. They only, I think, had about 40 yards on the ground. So that's not terrific. But they did enough. CeeDee Lamb had 100 yards. Cooper Rush was playing well in the first half. The second half was not so great on the offensive side, but their defense played inspired. Baker Mayfield played really well, I thought. Mike Evans, I thought, got shut down. 5 catches, 69 yards. I know it's not really a shutdown, but he wasn't really dominating the way he normally could dominate. And props to the Cowboy defense for that. The offensive line, I thought, of the Bucks, even though they gave up 4 sacks, did a really nice job. You could tell Baker was kind of scrambling back there because of the pressure. But back to what I was saying about the big hits, there was 3 hits on the Cowboys side I could say, whoa, where did that come from? They were bone-crushing hits. They had a hit from one of the young linebackers, Maurice Leofau, who's only making his, I think, 3rd, 4th start this year. He was playing good. They had a nice hit by Jordan Lewis that almost led to a sack that ended up leading to a fumble at the end of the game. Donovan Wilson was playing really well, had a couple of those big hits. On the Bucs side, they had a couple big hits from Vita Vea, from some of the corners. It was from Mike Edwards, they had a big hit. It was a really nice game for the defenses because they were hitting the tar out of people. But I want to go back to those sacks, specifically on Baker Mayfield, as the Cowboys only took 1 sack. And Chris Collinsworth said this. He said that those hits were not on Baker. You have to understand, a sack is bad for a quarterback, but when a quarterback gets hit a lot, it makes that quarterback go a little crazy in terms of, I got to speed up my clock. I got to get out now. I got to throw the ball now. I got to do this now. I got to go now. And the guys wouldn't even be around him. He's taking off to run. It's not because, oh my gosh, he needs to run. It was, he's so concerned about the rush that now he's being forced to run the football. Because in his head, he's not trusting what he is seeing. Like I said, the turnovers happened. There should have been 4 turnovers, actually, but the Cowboys only got 2. The pick by Lewis, that was a crazy pick because he just ends up fighting McMillan for it. If you actually go through the play, McMillan kind of like pushes Jordan Lewis in the face right before like 20 yards down the field. He's like 20 yards away from the end zone. He's pushing Jordan Lewis in the face. It's like a straight jab right into the face. And Lewis can't really locate the ball, but once he figures out, okay, McMillan's going up now, I'm going to try to make this play. And he ends up making a big play. Didn't lead to anything, but it forced a turnover. And then the fumble we just talked about beforehand, where it was an unreal play. It's the last play the Bucs had was Jordan Lewis again. He blitzes, he gets to Baker, he's got Baker out, and Baker's dragging him all over the place, and he ends up flipping it to Rachaad White, and Rachaad White turns, and tries to get extra yards, and cornerback Deron Bland for the Cowboys just rips it out and covers it. Defense made plays. And it shows you that they care about McCarthy and about Zimmer and about this coaching staff as a whole. And they want him there. And that's kind of what I saw. It was a good performance. Like I said, the rush offense was non-existent. They only had about 30, 40 yards on the ground. The rush defense of the Cowboys did, I thought, a pretty nice job on Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. I mean, they had about, if you take out the Baker runs, they had about 87 yards, or a little bit less than that. With the Baker runs, it was about like 110, 120 yards. So I thought Cowboys did a nice job against one of the better rushing units in the league. So that was props to them too. We talked about this a little bit on the What a Play podcast about how the Broncos and the Chargers game felt like, even though the game didn't get far away from the teams, it felt like it was a drop-back passing game. That's kind of what this game was like. It wasn't a crazy scoring game. It felt like the way the game was going, it was a drop-back passing game that was necessary. And that's kind of what happened. And it really changed the game, I think. Because even though Bucky Irving had a couple good runs and Rachaad White had a couple good runs, it felt like they needed an offense. And that, again, props to the Cowboy defense. A team that scored 40 last week but had averaged 28 all year only scored 24 on you. That's a really nice job. And again, it wasn't like the Buccaneers defense was playing bad either. They both played really well on defense. It was too much to overcome for the offense of the Buccaneers. And that's where you really have to be careful. Because now you give it back to the Falcons, who won yesterday, which we'll talk about Michael Penix and what he did. Now they got the playoff game, and now you're out at the moment. You and Seattle are vying for this last spot. And that's not helpful because you're battling Commanders who won yesterday. Again, you can't, that's not helpful. In fact, let's go to the Michael Penix stuff. Michael Penix, I thought Michael Penix did a lot of good things. I actually watched this game. I was really excited. I thought he did a really nice job. There was a couple drop passes. Not his fault. He had a couple drop passes from Drake London, from Ray McLeod. He had a drop that went to an interception by Drake London again. And that can't happen. But that's not Michael Penix's fault. It will go on the quarterback's stat. Like you say, Michael Penix threw an interception. Even though it wasn't an interception, It was the guy caught it. He's trying to fight for yards. The ball slipped out, but whatever. That's exactly what happened. It was not Michael Penix's fault. He didn't throw it directly to the guy. The guy didn't jump the route. It was called Michael Penix's receiver didn't catch the ball. But I thought it was really well done. They got him simple throws. You could see his vision was very good. When he was throwing the ball, he was hitting good spots. There was a couple he didn't, but a game, if you're gonna start him against the Giants. They play on Sunday night against the Commanders, and also for a sweep against the NFC East. For the Falcons, could very much happen in Landover, Maryland next weekend. But I thought he did some nice things. I thought he didn't make many mistakes, didn't get hit too much, and when he did, he stood in there, which a lot of young quarterbacks don't want to do. He stood in there, made some plays, and I think we're starting to see a little bit more from the Bo Nix and especially Michael Penix. Their maturity, they're both 25 years old. They played a lot in college. They are they know their surroundings, are very well aware. And that's kind of what we got from Michael Penix. Even though it was just his first start, and I'm maybe overanalyzing because he was playing the Giants, but I thought he did some nice things. I really do. And the defense helped out, which is always a good sign for a young quarterback. Now let's get to the news portion of this. Michael Penix was the only one that I'm going to give praise to. I'm going to give praise to Mike McCarthy, actually, too. He had this team ready to go. I don't know what he said, but he needs to say more often, because that team played inspired football. Offensively for the first half, defensively for the whole game. They took it to the Buccaneers, and the Buccaneers could not really respond. That's the team. Those bone-crushing hits, those big plays. At one point, the Buccaneers had a 3rd and 40. That was insane. They almost had 4 turnovers. They only had 2, but you won the turnover battle. If I tell you this team was going to win the turnover battle, Cooper Rush was going to have 200-plus yards in the first half, the Cowboys were going to score 20 points in the first half, you would have said, man, you're crazy. That makes no sense. But they did. They really, really did. And the Buccaneers just, like I said, became a drop-back passing game, even though the score wasn't that different. It just felt that way. Now, I've made my opinions also very public. I said the Buccaneers, or not the Buccaneers, excuse me. I made my opinions very public about the Mike McCarthy stuff, and I said, Mike shouldn't be brought back. Or if Mike was brought back, he shouldn't be the play caller. I still believe in that. But the players obviously showcased what they like about Mike McCarthy and his ability, that they want him around. And I can't really say too much about that negatively, because they've won 4 of the last 5, probably should have won 5 of the last 5. That's a great job by McCarthy. It's really what it comes down to. They should be 8-7 and still in this race, but they're not. Can they do it again next week against Philadelphia and then against the Commanders? Can they do it? If the answer is yes, there's almost an undoubted percentage that McCarthy comes back. But if they can win 2 of their last 3 and they do that, and even if they play the Eagles and they don't win but they play well, I think McCarthy's brought back. I really do. Because that team played inspired football. And that, even though a lot of teams are out of it, we said this about Arizona last year. They were out of it, but they played inspired. They played for their coach. That's what the Cowboys did last night. Can they continue that? We'll have to wait and see. But it was a good showing nonetheless. Next up, I want to see if I can find it. Okay, let's go talk about this free kick that happened on Thursday. I said this on the Why Play podcast. I'll say it here. The free kick rules are a little iffy because they don't really happen. It just occasionally happens. The last time a free kick was made, you have to go back to 1976 when it was actually the Chargers who made it. It was actually kind of hysterical. Dan Fouts was the quarterback. Eric Coryell was that offense. They had to kick a field goal, a free kick, and they ended up making it. Now, about 50 years later, the same situation happens, except not quite. Broncos have to punt the ball with about 8 seconds left, 6 seconds left. Fair catch call for the Chargers, and if you catch the ball and there's about a second on the clock, you can do this. What happened was there was an interference call. They called fair catch interference. The balls moved to the opposite side of the 50. And you could tell Jim Harbaugh didn't know the rule because he's been in college 9 years. This makes a lot of sense. You could see that at first they bring out Herbert, then they pull him back, they put out Cameron Dicker. And the rules were you don't have to, when you do a free kick situation, you don't have to have a field goal unit out there. You just need the kicker, the holder, and then you line up as if it was like a traditional kickoff, not like a dynamic kickoff. Now, but like a traditional, like every kickoff before this year kind of kickoff. You line up, you can run down there, and the defense can't block you. They can't run up. They can't do anything. They can return it if you miss. That's the only thing they can do. But also, since you don't have to have that field goal unit out there, you don't have to go 7 to 10 yards backwards. So instead of it being a 65, 67-yard field goal, it was a 57-yard field goal. Cameron Dicker can make that. He makes it to get the free 3 points heading into halftime. And that ended up turning the game around momentum-wise. That's pretty much what happened. It's a weird quirk in the rule book. The last time I saw it, this was the first time I saw it in game that I was watching. The last time I saw it happened a couple years ago in an international game. And I think it was in London. And Rich Eisen was on the call, which Rich Eisen does a good job. But that's the last time I saw it. I had never seen it made before. I'd never seen a kicker make it. So that was a really interesting experience to have. It was just, I had family members texting me, calling me, asking me, like, is this legal? Can they do this? Yes, they can do it. It's a weird quirk in the rule book. But I was thinking about this on Friday. I was like, when I shut off the Webplay podcast, I was like, I wonder what would happen if a team made the playoffs by doing this, or won a playoff game by doing this. I really do. I'd be interested. I really would be. But that's the quick rundown of the free kick play. Moving on to, let me see. Can I find it? Or because otherwise we're just going to do the previews for next week. I don't think I can find it. Okay. So, with the fact that Christmas is a Wednesday, we're not going to have a normal NFL World show. We're just going to do our preview now. Oops, I clicked the wrong one. There we go. Let's first start with the games on Christmas Day. Chiefs at Steelers. Steelers game plus 2.5 in Acrisure or Heinz Field, depending on what age you are. 44 is the over-under. If George Pickens plays, that could cause issues for the Chiefs, I think. I really want to see Russell Wilson play a good game, though. I'm going to give it to the Steelers just because it's going to be one of those weird games. Both coaches also admitted that either previous to the game they just played on Saturday or Saturday night, they started the game plan for this game. So, both coaches admitted that. But giving the Steelers, they win 24-21. Next up, Ravens at Houston. Houston plus 5. Give me Ravens. They find a way to win this game. 46.5 is the over-under. They'll hit that over. Ravens win big. 35-20. Ravens. Next up, Chargers at Patriots. Plus 5. Give me the Chargers. Give me the Chargers. It's going to be cold, but give me the Chargers. They win this game. This game is also on Saturday, part of the Saturday triple header. So, give me the Chargers win 20-14. It'll be an ugly game. Next up, Cardinals at Rams. Rams minus 6. Cardinals are out. Rams have the division at the moment. The Cardinals could play spoiler. I'm going to take, from the way the Rams have been playing, give me the Cardinals. They win this game. I don't even think they hit the over-under at all. They win the game 30. It might be only 30 points in this game scored. Give me 20-10 Cardinals. Next up, Panthers at Bucks. Bucks favored by 8. It's too high for me. Give me the Panthers. They played really well. Over-under is 49. I think that's about right. Panthers win this game. Shootout style. A really close game. 31-28. Next up, Cowboys, Eagles. Oh, that's interesting. I thought it was a 4 o'clock game. Okay, that's weird. I thought it was a 4 o'clock game. Fox had it written down as a 4. I'm going to click that. They have it written down as okay. I guess. Cowboys at Eagles. 43 is the over-under. 9.5 point favorites the Eagles are. It's high for me. Cowboys cover. They don't win, they cover. With the score 31-24. Next up, Jets at Bills. Bills favored by 10. High for me, but the Jets don't play very well. 46.5 is the over-under. Give me the Bills. But the Jets cover. Bills win this game. 31-24. Last game. Detroit, San Francisco. Monday Night Football. Over-under is 51.5. 3.5 plus 3.5 for the 49ers. Give me the Lions. They win this game. They try to exercise some demons against San Francisco. This is a shootout unlike any other. 38-35 Lions. And that is it for NFL World. I hope you guys have a lovely Christmas, lovely holiday. But who do you got winning this week? Also, what is the score for Lions at Niners? An NFC Championship rematch in the making. For NFL World, I'm Jacob Hebert. Out.